After last week's video about getting your levels right when playing in nightclubs, I received a bunch of comments and even had some people reach out to me personally asking if I can do a video on getting your headphone levels right. As when playing in clubs, a lot of people have experienced issues in this area. So what's going to happen in this video, I'm going to talk about what to expect when using your headphones in a club environment and different ways you can use your headphones to assure that your mixes are tight and you walk away from your set going, man, that was awesome, okay? Because if you get the headphones, some of these levels stuff wrong, it can really affect your confidence. So first off, if you're making the jump from a controller to club gear, you may get a little bit of a shock when playing on club gear for the first time, as no doubt the club gear has a lot less visuals, meaning the chances are you're not going to be able to stack your waveforms, and some of the older gear, God forbid, doesn't have sync, which means you're going to have to know how to beat match by ear. Now, if you're not yet confidently beat matching without visuals, I have a whole series of videos to help beginners get started in my free mini course, which I'll link in the description below. But I also did a how to beat match video on my YouTube channel, so I'll link that in now also. But once you know how to beat match by ear, and let's say you turn up for a gig and let's say the music's pumping really loud and the only way you can hear anything in your headphones is to turn up the volume, like max it out, right? Then, to be honest, I'd say the chances are that your boost speakers are turned way too loud, making it nearly impossible to hear anything in your headphones. And in my experience, people smashing the booth level in the DJ box, this happens all the time. So step one, and this may seem really obvious, but the first thing you want to do is get your room and booth levels right. And if you're not sure how to do that, then I'll also link in last week's video now, as that was all about it. But once you have reasonable levels in your DJ booth, meaning you have turned the booth speaker down, okay, and you've balanced it with the rest of the room, then ideally you should be able to hear the tracks in your headphones a lot better. And then you have some choices on how to best use your headphones in a club environment. So number one, stick around, okay? I'm gonna go through a whole bunch, but I think it's good to know them all. So first method, okay, is this one ear on, listening to the track that you're about to mix in, and the other ear off, listening to the booth monitor in the DJ box. And I guess the advantage of this method is you can differentiate between the tracks easily. So you got one in your ear, one out loud. And personally, this is the way I used to do it when I first started out, okay? But stick around, as I personally have a way that I think is a bit easier. But that being said, right, it is good to know how to use your headphones every which way possible, as sometimes different environments call for different approaches. And this one ear on and one ear off is no doubt like awesome actually for differentiating your tracks from one another. But the only thing that can go wrong with this method is, let's say you don't have a booth speaker in the DJ box, right? In which case you're gonna have one track in this headphone, right? And the other one, you're trying to beat match to the room, okay? And I'll be honest, like the speakers could be on the roof or at the back or anywhere, right? And that can be really difficult, in which case you can mirror out the one ear on and one ear off method in your headphones by flicking the headphone switch to mono, okay? And that puts one track in one ear and the other track in the other ear, okay? So it's kind of like the same thing, one in each kind of thing, right? So my advice, right, if you're a one ear on and one ear off kind of DJ, then get used to doing it with the mono split, okay, with both ears on, okay, just in case the venue doesn't have a boost speaker, as it's one thing, right, playing in the comfort of your own home where the speakers are facing you, but it's another entirely different thing playing through a club system. Okay, now personally, even though I started with that one ear on, one ear off method, when I became a teacher, I found a lot of students used to really struggle with it, and I actually found it so much easier to beat match with both tracks playing in both ears. And to do this, you just move the headphone switch to stereo, okay? But if putting both tracks in both ears confuses you, okay, especially at first when you're getting used to it because maybe there's just so much going on, just remember, using your headphones to beat match is not so much about identifying which track's which. It's more so to find out, are the tracks in sync? And if you move the jog wheel one way, and let's say it sounds worse, then go the other way until you find, until the beats are sounding good together. But again, that's explained in detail in my Learn to Beat Match video. Anyway, let's say you have switched it to stereo, deciding to hear both songs in both headphones, right? now you have two options. Now the easiest and most straightforward way is to just put both the headphone cues on for the channels that you're using, okay? And control the headphone volume here, okay? And in truth, I feel this is the most common method, as when playing in clubs, I used to always see both the headphone cues on when other DJs were playing, okay? And 100%, I would even prefer this to using the mono splits. That means having one song here and one song there. I find that even more confusing. And if you want to distinguish between the tracks, you can just select and deselect the buttons. So let's say I've got them both on and I want to hear just this one on its own, just take that off, you know what I mean? So it's kind of black and white. You can either hear them both together, or I can take it off, hear what's going on in the room. And to be honest, it's actually relatively easy, and that's probably where I'd start. However, once you're used to that method and starting to develop your skills as a DJ, meaning you're thinking less, you're feeling more, you know your way around the gear, then I would move to my favorite headphone method, and that is selecting the master headphone cue, okay? So that means if I've got that one, that's the master cue. That means anything coming through the speakers, I can now hear through my headphones. And then I'd use the channel headphone cue for the one that I'm gonna mix in. So let's say that's the one playing out loud, I can hear that through my headphones, have this on for the one that I'm gonna mix in, and now I can control how much I hear of each song with the mixing dial. So if I go towards master here, that's turning up the master channel here, okay? So that means turning up that one in my headphones. And if I go towards Q, it's turning up the volume for the channel that I'm gonna mix in. Now, ideally, directly in the middle is actually probably the equivalent of doing that, so hearing them both equally. But the advantage of taking the channel cue off the master track and using the actual master cue is, right, you can control the levels of both tracks. So that means, let's say I want to turn up the one I'm mixing in, I just turn the mixing dial here slightly towards Q. It's actually really cool. You get a lot more control this way. Now, one thing quickly though, I honestly find the mixing dial is kind of like one of those friends, okay, that at first you hate, okay? You just don't understand, you want nothing to do with them. But the more time you spend with them, the more you come to love them. And personally, when using my headphones, I always use this method, okay? And if you want to deep dive into this actual topic like this here, and even on how to use your headphones without speakers so you can mimic exactly what the crowd would hear without even needing to connect a speaker, meaning you can play, practice, even record it anywhere, anytime. You haven't even got a speaker hooked up, right? Then you have to check out this video I did about it. I'll link it in now, okay? But honestly, once you master this method, there is no turning back, I assure you. And I personally love playing in my headphones the whole time. And I know the DJs that wear in-ear monitors the whole time as well, they're also doing this method too, okay? But personally, when playing live, even though I love being in my headphones the whole time, when playing live, I do just use my headphones to beat match and prepare my track, but then I take them off for my transitions and also so I can connect more with the audience. I don't want to close myself off too much. However, okay, there's just one thing you need to be mindful of when using the mixing dial, and that is, and this again, sorry, circles back to the video I did last week about balancing your levels on the club gear. But let's say you just bought club equipment yourself, okay? And let's say you're playing at home and you have your speakers right up, okay? You have your channel output right up, but your master output is way down to give you more headroom. Then the master channel is out of balance with the input channel, and this means when using the mixing dial, you're gonna have to turn it more towards master to be able to actually hear it. Now, trust me, right, if the levels of the master channel, okay, and the input channels, okay, are the same, then if the mixing dial is straight up, the levels of both tracks will be at the same volume in your headphones. But if the master output level and the channel output level are different, you're gonna have to play around with your mixing dial to find the sweet spot where you can hear both tracks personally. Now, this is what I mean about getting to know your mixing dial and experimenting with it. It's not that easy at first, okay? So if my master and channel outputs are uneven, I usually take my mixing dial all the way towards master, okay? Then first adjust my headphone level so I can hear it clearly. Then I slowly move the mixing dial towards Q until I can hear the sweet spot where I can hear both tracks, okay? So if the master channel is much lower than the channel output, then the mixing dial will probably have to be a lot closer to master to turn that up a bit to kind of like overcompensate because they're out of whack. Now, in truth, this is one of the harder things to explain, and the chances are if you're using a controller, this won't even be an issue for you as they've balanced it all automatically. But this video is about what to expect in clubs, and it's good to be aware that you may have to go and find the sweet spot with your mixing dial where you can basically hear both tracks personally, okay? And that depends a little bit on where your master and channel outputs are. Now, whoo, man, that's a mouthful, eh? Like, oh my God, like it is a little bit of a head fuck, and someone actually messaged me about that exactly, so I'll let them know to check out that part. So hopefully that helps. Now, all in all, okay, using your headphones in clubs isn't that different to using them at home. But as mentioned at the beginning of the video, your biggest enemy to beat matching and even being able to hear your tracks in your headphones is probably the booth speaker, okay? Now, don't get me wrong, I like to have the booth speaker moderately loud, but definitely not so loud that you have to smash your ears by turning your headphones all the way up, okay? So what you have to do is you have to find a gain structure that works for you. And if it means dropping the booth levels so you can hear the tracks in your headphones, so be it. As in my experience, that is 100% the path of least resistance here and the most logical thing to do. And if you're running your own events, right, and let's say you don't have a booth speaker, personally, put the speakers beside you. Like, I wouldn't put them behind you. I wouldn't put them pointing on you, okay? I'd have them pointing outwards so you can still hear them. You can still feel it, but the sound's not directly on you, as that means you can be beside the sound, okay? And that's going to also increase your chances of distinguishing between what's going out, right, okay, and what's also coming. You can hear your headphones because it's not like it's not on you, okay? So just be mindful of that. Okay, however, that does kind of lead to one thing, okay, and that is protecting your ears and should you wear earplugs. So let me know if a video on that interests you. So I could do one in a few weeks, maybe, right? Maybe even next week. We'll see how the kind of response I get, as I've got a lot of experience with different sound systems, and I've done some research as well on protecting your hearing, and I'm happy to share my findings with you if that interests you, okay? Anyway, thanks again for tuning in. Okay, quite an intense video. There's a lot to explain there, okay? But if you found value in this video, please like, comment, and subscribe to help the channel grow. And that also helps inspire me too, okay? So say something nice for me. Anyway, much love. See you next week. Cheers.